You know the choices are rough when it's either Mass in a language that you do not speak and have no idea what's going on, or the zestiest pastor you've ever known busting it down at the altar. Alright, hey guys, bonjour to Simon's Catechesis. Je m'appelle Simon, I think. I don't know, I don't speak French. I'm kind of making fun of them, but what's going on, guys? Oh, wow, do I have any idea how to get out of here? Probably not, but we're gonna try. Weren't there two of you guys? Okay, one's dead. Womp womp. So, as the intro may have teased a little bit, let me get some redstone too, because I know I'm going to probably use some in a little bit. Not a little bit, but, you know, in the future. As you guys could probably tell by the intro today, we're going to be talking about, Mass. What's going on with all that, right? Specifically Roman Catholic Mass, if it you know, wasn't clear. Believe it or not, I don't ever go to a Lutheran communion. Weird, right? But basically, if you are unawares, there is kind of a ongoing crisis, is some you know, people put it that way. Problem is another way. Controversy is probably the most apt description. There's a big controversy going on when it comes to how Mass is to be done in the church. And the big contenders is ordinary and extraordinary form, right? Or more colloquially, traditional Latin Mass and Novus Ordo. Novus Ordo being the ordinary form, and then traditional Latin Mass being the extraordinary form. So what's the deal with all that, right? Right now, Novus Ordo is the most common form. Very, very popular. Used pretty much in almost every church you're going to find one. Like, unless it's specifically run by a fraternity that only does traditional Latin Masses, they're always going to have, oh, here, buddy, come on in. They're always going to have Novus Ordo available. And that's the Mass that's going to be in English because, yeah, fun fact, since, like, I don't even know, the 300s, maybe, I don't, that's probably wrong, I should probably look it up first, but since, for a long time, Mass has only been in Latin, right? It's only been in the Latin language, the linguam latinum, and that was because, for the longest time, Latin was the primary language of the church in the West, right? Almost everybody spoke Latin. So as like a symbol of unity, Mass was pretty much only done in Latin because, like, why would you ever speak Gallic if everybody there speaks Latin anyways, you know? So that way anybody in the Roman Empire could go to any Mass anywhere and immediately understand what's going on and, you know, why people, you know, what's being said. Well, lo and behold, that kind of stopped happening, right? Believe it or not, empires don't last, and when the empires don't last, their single continuous language kind of falls apart a little bit. And guess what happened? Yeah, Latin stopped being dominant. So yeah, Novus Ordo is in any language that is, it's the cultural language of where the Mass is being held, right? So that's Novus Ordo. So then what's this traditional Latin Mass? Well, yeah, I said it's in Latin, duh. But it's a little bit more than that. The traditional Latin Mass, in my opinion, I've been to both. Not only that, I've also been to high and low Latin Mass, and I'll get to that in a minute. But of all of those, in my opinion, traditional Latin Mass, this might just be the parish that I went to, but it's typically longer, right? And there's a lot more kneeling, right? Traditional Latin Mass in Latin, very much full of a lot more deep meaning that gets lost on a lot of people. Novus Ordo is fully in English in the United States. It's going to be fully in English or in Spanish or in Vietnamese. I've seen that offered near me as well. And it is going to be a little briefer, and it's going to be a lot easier for a layman to get into, right? So then, what's the problem then? What's the problem, right? Yeah, the the more available Mass is going to be more available, or I guess the more accessible Mass is more accessible, right? Duh. That kind of just makes sense, right? So what's the problem here? Well, the problem is Novus Ordo, according to traditionalists, is not very good. And that is something that I think I can personally attest to, or at least from my experience, it can certainly be done, or not done, mishandled. It can be mishandled a lot worse than traditional Latin Mass. When you have a bad traditional Latin Mass, the worst you're going to get out of it is boredom, right? You're just going to be sitting there kneeling for 2 hours, and then you're going to get up and be kind of grumpy that your knees hurt. That's it. That's the worst that could happen, is just boredom. I have walked out of some Novus Ordo Masses questioning if I was ever going to go back to that parish again, right? Just because of how the priest would be acting. La Daimonde, sí. Just because of how the priest would be acting, or something that was said there, or, you know, like, the music is another big thing. Because for traditional Latin Mass, in low Mass, there's no singing at all, so you don't even have to worry about the music. In high Mass, it's usually either choir only, or it's choir and an organ, right? Oh, even more Daimonde. Sí, muy bien. It's either organs and a choir, or just a choir, but either way, it's going to sound decent. When it comes to Novus Ordo, it's pretty much whatever the parish decides, and that can include contemporary music, right? Contemporary Christian music, whatever it's called, CCM. And I'm not a big fan of it. I'm not a big fan of CCM. In my, I just can't get into it, right? So far, when it comes to all of the songs, only one of them has ever really stuck, and that was at my friend's parish, because at the end they played that one song, "Blessed Be Your Name." I forgot like the exact title, but it goes like, "Blessed be the name of the Lord, blessed be your glorious name." It was pretty good. I don't know. But even then, would I say that that's something that I want to hear at the end of a Mass? I don't know. Probably not. No. Something I would probably say for the car ride to the Mass, but not something I would play during it, especially, or even if it's just at the end. So there's a lot of variability, and with that variability in Novus Ordo, there's a lot of places where it can go wrong. So that's one of the points against Novus Ordo. Another point is that it's not as reverent. No, I'm not going to say that. It's not as enriched. They take a lot out, right? Oh, nice. There's a lot of prayers that are in every single traditional Latin Mass that become optional for Novus Ordo. And when they become optional, the priest very frequently tend to not do them, right? So, for example, the sprinkling of holy water, my parish typically will do it, but a lot of times they just don't. And a lot of parishes I go to just don't. And I'm, like, sitting there waiting for my little sprinkling, got my right hand ready, do the little sign of the cross, and then it just never happens. And I'm completely dry, and I'm like, what happened? What gives? And there's meaning with that. You're supposed to say a little prayer about hyssop or something. I just got a Latin Mass booklet, so maybe I should bust that out for this video, or I'll just keep it in my shelf for now. And another thing, and this is my personal biggest gripe with Novus Ordo. Like, I'm okay with I don't like contemporary music, but I'm fine with it. I'll grit my teeth. I don't care. The thing I don't like about Novus Ordo is that the priest is facing most of the time. The priest is facing the people, right? Whereas in traditional Latin Mass, always facing the altar. Always facing the altar, always facing the crucifix. That's how it's done. That's how it's supposed to be, because the priest is supposed to be, like, leading you in worship, and instead of, like, just preaching to you about the mysteries of the Holy Spirit, or, I don't know. now that begs the question of, okay, well, if there's all these points against Novus Ordo, then why do we even have it, right? Why keep it around, or why not just go back to traditional Latin Mass? After all, Pope Benedict the 16th said that every priest was free to choose between offering a traditional Latin Mass or a Novus Ordo Mass. Well, unfortunately, things change, and now it's up to the bishops and not the priest, right? So I have a buddy who lives in Chicago, and the Chicago Archdiocese apparently banned traditional Latin Mass from being done by any secular priests, or I don't know if secular is the right word, any diocesan church, any church that is run by the diocese. So this would exclude those traditional Latin Mass fraternities like the FSSP or the SSPX, even though the SSPX is kind of in a very silly spot right now. But we'll get to that's a whole different video, and maybe I'll actually make a video on that because it's a little bit interesting. I just got to study it a little more. And so, yeah. So now we have bishops banning Latin Masses, or bishops will restrict how many diocesan churches can offer Latin Mass or how many Masses they can offer. And now the question is, okay, well, like, what gives with that? Why, And the answer is that because Latin Mass just isn't popular, and that's the sad thing. Latin Mass is not popular among the laity. It's making a bit of a comeback with young people, especially young families. I know when I went to Latin Mass, it was packed, full of families with young kids, like 2, 3, all the way to like 8-year-olds. Yeah, just all these young families at this Latin Mass. And there's some old people there, but not a whole lot. And it makes me think, like, I feel like the people who grew up with Latin Mass have grown, I guess, not to say they despise it, but to underappreciate it in a sense. I think. And this is definitely not as, I don't know how to say this. This isn't to say that only old people dislike Latin Mass, because old people experienced it, but I definitely feel like it started back during Vatican II. Back when there was a need to reform the Mass, because nobody was doing Latin Mass really as effectively as they should be. It was getting, misused a lot, and so an underrepresented Latin Mass, as we said, is going to be boring and unfruitful. And so Vatican II comes around and they rework Mass to make Novus Ordo, and all of the people who were tired of traditional Latin Mass are going, dude, yes, finally, whoa, yeah, oh man, this is awesome, why would anybody ever go back? And they're teaching their kids that, right? And so their kids are like, oh yeah, no, traditional Latin Mass, yeah, that's kind of weird, and it was kind of boring, is what my grandpa said. Oh, Daimondes. It was kind of boring, and they made you stand a lot. I don't know. I wouldn't want my kids doing that, or I wouldn't want that for my parish. I want to do just this Novus Ordo that I've been growing up with, and this has been okay, Save myself, dude. I'm so cool. Oh-ho. Okay, well, we'll go somewhere else. We'll go this way. You gotta make your own kind of music, right? But now there's a bit of a young revival, because you have all these people who are like the grandchildren of the people who would go to traditional Latin Mass, or even the great-grandchildren in some cases, and they're looking at Novus Ordo, and they're seeing how modern it's becoming, and because now it's just pandering to more modern audiences, because Novus Ordo is the ad populum Mass, right? And so, traditional or contemporary Christian music is probably not doing it for a lot of people. The type of sermons that people are given is also not like the best, because it's just, I don't know. People are getting turned away from Novus Ordo when they're very young, is kind of what I'm seeing here. And so what's the deal now? What should we have? Should we have Novus Ordo? Should we have traditional Latin Mass? Should we have both? What's going on? In my opinion, I think the answer is, I don't know. I do think that traditional Latin Mass is amazing. It is very spiritually fruitful if done right. If you know what to do with it, right? Because, especially with a low Mass. When I went to low Mass the first time, I had no idea what was going on. And I left it completely bored, thinking, wow, that was terrible. I hope I never have a Mass like that again. And then I learned that, oh, that was a thing called low Mass. And it's not like high Mass where there's incense and singing and all this. It's very introspective. And when I realized that, I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. That actually sounds really good. That actually sounds like something I would want to do again after I, spend some time studying it a little more. But that's the key, right? I'm not going to go back to a low Mass until I've studied low Mass, right? Because otherwise I'm not going to be getting what I'm supposed to be getting out of it. If we want to keep Latin Mass, what we need to do is make sure that the laity are educated on it. And, hey, maybe I'll make some videos on that. Like maybe years in the future, right? I'll study Latin Mass, figure out what's going on, and make some videos making it more accessible, right? Carlos Acutis, pray for us. I don't know. But need to have the laity be educated on Latin Mass. And then, for Novus Ordo, honestly, I think it needs to be restricted a little bit more, or more restrictions placed on it. I think it's too loose. There's this one church that I go to for Latin Mass, and last Sunday, I went there with my friend for the Novus Ordo, and it was amazing. It was the best Novus Ordo I've been to. Including my own parish, which before I thought was like the gold standard because, they did everything pretty well. I just didn't like the way some of the priests acted. But no, this Novus Ordo Mass, the whole thing was sung like it's supposed to be. Because I don't know if you know this, the Mass is supposed to be sung like it is in Revelation, right? The whole thing was sung. Every single prayer, every single praise, he would say, the Lord be with you. And we would say, and with your spirit. Right? I thought that was kind of fun. And the priest was facing the altar. Which, yeah, fun fact, you can do that in Novus Ordo. It's not just facing the people. Like, it's not mandatory that you face the people. You can face the altar. That's completely fine. There's so much room with Novus Ordo to have a good Mass, and there is so much room in Novus Ordo to have a bad Mass. And I really wish it was not like that. I really wish it was not so variable on each individual parish. I wish that it was a lot more standardized and that it was standardized well. I wish that every Novus Ordo Mass was like the Mass that I had at that parish, that had the traditional Latin Masses. And I think it was because that parish does traditional Latin Mass and that priest really does Latin Mass well, that he knows how to make a Novus Ordo Mass into a Mass, a real Mass, right? And not just like, yeah, come in here, sing your songs, get your Eucharist, and, a little homily to make you feel good and you go home, right? Blah. Blah. I don't know. And honestly, if every Novus Ordo Mass was like that one that I went to at the traditional Latin Mass church, honestly, I would say Novus Ordo could probably replace traditional Latin Mass, maybe. I don't know about that. I think traditional Latin Mass definitely still has its place, but I think that the modern argument that people are making when it comes to traditional Latin Mass, that, it should be kept around, but it has its own place, right? I think that can only be true if Novus Ordo was standard and good. Because it can be good, it can be amazing, and if it was amazing, then yeah, I would say Novus Ordo 99% of the time, traditional Latin Mass if it's a nice feast day, maybe. But that's not the case, unfortunately. The case is now that traditional Latin Mass is standard, and if it's bad, then you get a boring Mass. Whereas Novus Ordo, oh man, when it hits, it can be hitting, but when it misses, you leave church feeling like you never even went in. That's my 2 cents on it. Hopefully, maybe you guys have your own thoughts on it. Maybe this is a completely new problem for you guys. Maybe it's something you've never even heard of. Maybe you've only been to Novus Ordo your entire life. I recommend checking out a Latin Mass, but not before looking into it a little bit, so that way you know what's going on. Because it was definitely cool. Oh, high Masses. I never even talked about a high Mass. Dude, high Mass was awesome. Like, every Mass should be like a high Mass. I know I'm saying every Mass should be like blah, blah, blah. But everyone should go to a high Mass once in their life. Even if you're not Catholic, even if you're not Christian, you should go to a high Mass once in your life. It was so amazing. Everything was awesome. Highly recommend it all the way, through and through. But yeah, high Mass, low Mass. Oh, damn on this. High Mass, Low Mass, they still need to be celebrated. They need to be celebrated actively. The lady needs to be educated on how to celebrate them. And then Novus Ordo should be standardized. Novus Ordo should be made standardized very well. Priest, please face the altar. Face the altar. I'm not like, dude, ugh. Biggest pet peeve about that. The music is okay. I personally prefer when it's organ or choir myself, but I'll budge when it comes to contemporary music because sometimes it'll be, all right and engaging. Someone needs to keep an eye on these priests as well, because sometimes they be acting like they're not in front of the literal presence of Christ too in the Eucharist. Like there's the tabernacle's right there, and you're like talking about a hip hop mass, dude. Seriously? But I guess that's my 2 cents, and it's also probably gonna be my video for now. Let me finish up gobbling up this redstone here. I say this was kind of good. We had a lot of progress, got a lot of materials, definitely. Even the stuff I will use. And look at this. We have so many diamondes. We can make a ton of stuff. So I thank you guys sincerely for watching. I really do appreciate it. We are growing very fast. I didn't expect this many subscribers. We're almost at 50. And if you guys have any ideas on what to do for 50 subscribers, please tell me. I was thinking about starting, maybe that's when I'd start doing Bible reviews. Or at least showing off my Bible collection, because if you guys remember from the first episode, I have like 27 now. I think that's still the same number. I don't know if I bought any new ones. That's how big my collection is I just forget whether or not I've just bought a new one. Yeah, let me know if you have any ideas for any future videos, any ideas for what to do for 50 subscribers, and what are your thoughts on this whole Novus Ordo traditional Latin Mass thing? Especially if you're Catholic, especially if you're not Catholic. If you had this sort of dilemma in your parish, how would you respond to that? I want to know that. That's my question to you. I'm going to start asking you guys questions now, because I want you guys to actually start replying to these. I want to have discussions about this. So let me know in the comments, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.